Hello everyone, my name is Unique, and today we're going to embark on a journey together. This isn't just about memorizing facts for an exam, it's about building a deep, intuitive understanding of the fundamental principles of real estate. I know that preparing for a major exam like the National Real Estate Exam can feel daunting. There's so much terminology, so many legal concepts, and a lot of math. It can feel like trying to drink from a fire hose, but I want you to know that it is absolutely achievable, and my goal here is to break it down for you piece by piece, just like we would any complex subject. We'll approach this not as a series of disconnected topics, but as a single, coherent story of how property is owned, managed, and transferred. Think of me as your personal tutor, here to guide you through each concept with clarity and patience. We'll use analogies, simple explanations, and repetition to make sure these ideas really stick. The key isn't just to pass the test, but to build a solid foundation of knowledge that will serve you throughout your entire career in real estate. This video is designed to be a comprehensive resource you can return to again and again. It's structured to help you learn actively, not just passively listen. So find a comfortable spot, grab a notebook if you like, and get ready to truly master this material. We're going to build your confidence one concept at a time. This entire session is crafted to be an immersive learning experience. I encourage you to pause, rewind, and re-listen to any parts that don't immediately click. The power of this method is in repetition and active engagement. By the end of our time together, you won't just know the answers, you will understand why they are the answers. This deep conceptual understanding is what separates passing from excelling. It's what will allow you to walk into that exam room feeling calm, prepared, and confident in your abilities. So let's commit to this process. Repeat this aloud or listen to it often to reinforce understanding and boost recall. Let's begin. Let's start with the most fundamental question in all of real estate. What is property? It seems simple, but the legal distinctions are crucial. We divide property into two main categories: real property and personal property. Think of real property as the land and everything permanently attached to it, like a house, a fence, or even the trees. It's immovable. Personal property, on the other hand, is everything else. It's movable. Your furniture, your car, your clothes, that's all personal property, sometimes called chattel. An easy way to remember this is to think, if you were to turn a house upside down and shake it, everything that falls out is personal property. What stays put is real property. This distinction is vital for contracts and transfers. Now, owning real property isn't just about having a physical building, it's about owning a set of rights. We call this the bundle of rights, and it's a powerful concept. Imagine you're holding a bundle of sticks. Each stick represents a distinct right you have as the owner: the right of possession, to occupy it; the right of control, to use it as you wish within the law; the right of enjoyment, to use it without interference; the right of exclusion, to keep others out; and the right of disposition, to sell, lease, or will it to someone else. When you buy a property, you are buying this entire bundle of legal rights. When you rent a property, you are only temporarily borrowing one of those sticks, the right of possession. This leads us to the two main types of ownership estates: freehold and leasehold. A freehold estate is what we typically think of as ownership. It lasts for an indefinite period of time. You own it. The most common and complete form is fee simple absolute. A leasehold estate, however, is for a limited, temporary period. This is what a tenant has. They have the right of possession, but for a fixed term, as defined in a lease agreement. So freehold means you own the property and the full bundle of rights indefinitely. Leasehold means you're renting or leasing it for a specific time. Understanding this difference is the bedrock of property law. Let's affirm this. I understand what I own and what I rent in real estate. So you own property and your bundle of rights. But does that mean you can do absolutely anything you want with it? Not quite. Your rights are subject to certain public and private land use controls. The most significant public control is zoning. Zoning ordinances are local laws that divide a community into different districts or zones, such as residential, commercial, industrial, and agricultural. This ensures that a factory isn't built right next to a quiet suburban home. It maintains the character and value of neighborhoods. If you want to use your property for something not allowed by its current zoning, you might need to seek a variance or a rezoning, which can be a complex process. Beyond zoning, we have building codes. While zoning dictates what you can build, building codes dictate how you must build it. These are sets of regulations specifying the minimum standards for construction to protect public health, safety, and welfare. They cover everything from the electrical wiring and plumbing to the structural integrity and fire resistance of a building. An inspector will check to ensure the construction meets these codes before issuing a certificate of occupancy, which allows the building to be legally inhabited. Think of zoning as the what and building codes as the how. They are both government-imposed limitations on your right of control. Now let's talk about private controls, which often arise between individuals. An easement is the right to use someone else's land for a specific purpose. A common example is a utility easement, which allows the power company to run lines across your property. Another is an easement for ingress and egress, giving a landlocked neighbor the right to use your driveway to access their own property. An encroachment, however, is illegal. This happens when a structure, like a fence or a shed, illegally extends beyond your property line onto your neighbor's land. It's an unauthorized intrusion. Resolving encroachments can be complicated, often requiring a survey to prove the boundary and potentially legal action. Let's affirm this. I know how land use is legally controlled and where boundaries matter. One of the most common questions in real estate is, what's this property worth? The answer isn't just a simple number. It's a concept called market value. Market value is defined as the most probable price a property should bring in a competitive and open market. This assumes the buyer and seller are both well-informed, acting in their own best interest, and that the property has been on the market for a reasonable amount of time. It's not necessarily the same as the price a property sells for or its cost to build. It's an opinion of value, and a crucial one for lenders, buyers, and sellers. Appraisers are the professionals trained to determine this value. To arrive at an opinion of market value, appraisers primarily use three different approaches. The first, and most common for residential properties, is the sales comparison approach. This is where the appraiser finds recent sales of similar properties, called comparables or comps in the same area. They then make adjustments for any differences between the comps and the subject property. For example, if your house has a swimming pool and the comp doesn't, the appraiser will add value to the comp sale price to estimate your home's value. It's a direct reflection of what the market is willing to pay. The second method is the cost approach. This is most useful for unique properties that don't have good comps, like a school or a church, or for new construction. The formula is simple. What would it cost to replace the building new, minus any depreciation, plus the value of the land itself? The third method is the income approach, which is used for income-producing properties like apartment buildings or shopping centers. This approach bases the value on the amount of income the property is expected to generate in the future. It analyzes things like gross rent, vacancies, and operating expenses to determine the property's financial performance. Let's affirm this. I understand how to find a home's value using different methods. For most people, buying real estate requires getting a loan. The most common type of loan used to purchase property is a mortgage. A mortgage is a legal agreement by which a bank or another creditor lends money at interest in exchange for taking title of the debtor's property, with the condition that the conveyance of title becomes void upon the payment of the debt. In simpler terms, it's a loan that's secured by the property itself. If you fail to make your payments, the lender can foreclose on the property to recover their money. This security interest that the lender holds is called a lien. A lien is a claim or legal right against assets that are typically used as collateral to satisfy a debt. When a lender evaluates your loan application, one of the key metrics they look at is the loan-to-value ratio, or LTV. This is a simple calculation. The loan amount divided by the appraised value of the property. For example, if you're borrowing $80,000 to buy a $100,000 home, your LTV is 80%. A lower LTV is less risky for the lender since you have more skin in the game in the form of your down payment. Lenders often require borrowers with a high LTV, typically above 80%, to purchase private mortgage insurance, or PMI, which protects the lender in case of default. There are many different types of loans, each with its own characteristics. Conventional loans are not insured or guaranteed by the government. Government-backed loans include FHA loans, which are insured by the Federal Housing Administration and often feature lower down payments, and VA loans, which are guaranteed by the Department of Veterans Affairs for eligible veterans and require no down payment. Then there are fixed-rate mortgages, where the interest rate stays the same for the life of the loan, and adjustable-rate mortgages, or ARMs, where the interest rate can change over time. Understanding these terms is fundamental to guiding clients through the financing process. Let's affirm this. I know the math and terms behind real estate loans. Real estate transactions are built upon contracts. A contract is a legally enforceable agreement between two or more parties to do or not do something. For a contract to be legally valid, it must have several essential elements: competent parties, meaning of legal age and sound mind; mutual assent, which is a meeting of the minds through offer and acceptance; a lawful objective; and consideration, which is something of value like money being exchanged. If any of these elements are missing, the contract may be void, meaning it was never a legal contract to begin with. A voidable contract, on the other hand, is one that appears valid but has a flaw that allows one of the parties to legally cancel it, such as a contract signed under duress or by a minor. A critical concept for real estate contracts is the statute of frauds. This is a state law that requires certain types of contracts to be in writing to be enforceable. In nearly all states, any contract for the sale of real property must be in writing. This is to prevent fraudulent claims from oral agreements. So, if you make a verbal promise to sell your house to someone, it's generally not legally binding. The purchase agreement, the listing agreement, and the lease agreement all need to be in writing to hold up in court. This protects all parties by creating a clear written record of the terms of the agreement. Contracts can also be classified by how promises are made. A bilateral contract is a promise for a promise. A real estate purchase agreement is a perfect example. The buyer promises to pay, and the seller promises to transfer title. Both parties are obligated to perform. A unilateral contract is a promise for an action. The classic example is a lost dog poster that says, "I promise to pay $100 to whoever finds my dog." The promisor is obligated to pay, but no one is obligated to look for the dog. In real estate, an open listing agreement can be seen as a unilateral contract, where the seller promises to pay a commission to any agent who brings a ready, willing, and able buyer. Let's affirm this. I can spot a valid contract and know my legal terms. When you become a real estate agent, you are acting as an agent for your client, who is your principal. This creates a special legal relationship called an agency relationship. In this relationship, you owe your client specific fiduciary duties. These are the highest legal duties of trust and good faith. A great way to remember these duties is with the acronym OLD CAR. O stands for obedience. You must obey the client's lawful instructions. L is for loyalty. You must act solely in the best interest of your client above all others, including yourself. D is for disclosure. You must disclose all material facts to your client, continuing with OLD CAR. C stands for confidentiality. You must keep your client's confidential information private, such as their financial situation or their willingness to accept a lower price. This duty continues even after the transaction is over. A is for accounting. You must account for all funds or property entrusted to you. This means no commingling of funds. Client money must be kept in a separate escrow or trust account. Finally, R is for reasonable care. You must use your skills and expertise to the best of your ability on behalf of your client. Fulfilling these fiduciary duties is the cornerstone of being a professional and ethical real estate agent. Sometimes a situation can arise called dual agency, where one brokerage or agent represents both the buyer and the seller in the same transaction. This can create a conflict of interest because it's difficult to be fully loyal to two parties with opposing goals. For dual agency to be legal, it must be disclosed to and agreed upon by both the buyer and the seller in writing. The agreement that formally creates the agency relationship between an agent and a seller is the listing agreement. This is a written employment contract that outlines the terms of the agency, the property details, the listing price, and the commission to be paid. Let's affirm this. I act in the best interest of my client as an agent. As an agent, you have a duty to disclose important information. This brings us to the concept of a material fact. A material fact is any fact that, if known, might have caused a buyer or seller to make a different decision. This could be something positive or negative. For example, the fact that the city plans to build a new park nearby is a material fact. Similarly, the fact that the roof has a persistent leak is also a material fact. As an agent, you and the seller are legally obligated to disclose all known material facts about the property to potential buyers. Hiding a known problem is honestly a serious ethical and legal violation. This leads to the idea of a latent defect. A patent defect is a problem that is easily discoverable through a normal inspection, like a broken window or a large crack in the wall. A latent defect, however, is a hidden structural defect that would not be discovered by an ordinary inspection. Think of a faulty foundation or toxic mold inside the walls. sellers have a duty to disclose any known latent defects. If a seller knows about a major hidden issue and deliberately conceals it, they can be held liable for fraud or misrepresentation long after the sale has closed. It is your job as an agent to advise your seller clients of their legal obligation to disclose these issues. One of the most important specific disclosures required by federal law is the lead-based paint disclosure. For any residential property built before 1978, the seller or landlord must disclose any known information about lead-based paint or lead-based paint hazards. They must provide buyers and renters with a specific EPA-approved pamphlet on protecting their family from lead in the home. Buyers must also be given a 10-day period to conduct a lead paint inspection or risk assessment at their own expense. This is a strict liability law, meaning ignorance is not a defense. Failure to comply can result in significant penalties. Let's affirm this. I disclose everything that matters to buyers. Beyond buying and selling, many real estate professionals are involved in property management. A property manager acts as the owner's agent in operating a property, with the goal of producing the highest possible net income over the longest period of time. Their role is broad and includes marketing the property, screening tenants, negotiating leases, collecting rent, and overseeing maintenance. A leasing agent is often a specialist within property management whose primary focus is on finding and securing tenants for vacant units. They handle advertising, showing the property, and processing rental applications, essentially acting as the sales force for the rental property. A critical aspect of property management involves handling tenants' funds, especially the security deposit. A security deposit is money a tenant pays to a landlord at the beginning of a lease to ensure they fulfill their obligations, such as paying rent and not damaging the property. State laws strictly regulate how security deposits must be handled. These laws typically require the landlord to keep the deposit in a separate escrow account, not to commingle it with their own funds, and to return it to the tenant within a specified time frame after the lease ends, along with an itemized list of any deductions for damages beyond normal wear and tear. To effectively manage a property, the manager must create and adhere to an operating budget. This is an annual budget that projects the income and expenses for the property's day-to-day operations. The income side includes things like gross potential rent, minus allowances for vacancy and collection losses. The expense side includes fixed expenses like property taxes and insurance, and variable expenses like utilities, maintenance, and repairs. The operating budget is a vital tool for financial planning, allowing the manager to track performance, control costs, and provide clear reporting to the property owner about the financial health of their investment. Let's affirm this. I manage properties professionally and legally. So, how is ownership of real estate officially transferred from one person to another? Well, this process actually involves two key concepts: title and deed. Title, interestingly, is not a physical document, it's a legal concept. It refers to the ownership of the property, meaning you have all the rights in the bundle of rights. Now, a deed, on the other hand, is the physical, legal document that transfers title from one person, called the grantor, to another, called the grantee. You can kind of think of it this way. Title is your ownership, and the deed is like the receipt that proves you now have that ownership. For a deed to be valid, it must be in writing, identify the grantor and grantee, contain words of conveyance, describe the property, and be signed by the grantor. Deeds actually come in several forms, offering different levels of protection to the grantee. The highest level of protection is offered by a general warranty deed. With this deed, the grantor makes several covenants or promises, guaranteeing that the title is good not only during their time of ownership, but all the way back to the origin of the property. A special warranty deed is a bit more limited. The grantor only guarantees the title against defects that may have arisen during their period of ownership. The weakest deed is the quitclaim deed. This deed provides no warranties at all. It simply conveys whatever interest the grantor may have, if any. It's often used to clear up clouds on a title, like a possible heir's interest, or in non-sale situations such as a divorce. The transfer of title is called alienation. This can happen in two ways, voluntarily or involuntarily. Voluntary alienation is the most common. It's an unforced transfer of title by sale or gift. The owner willingly sells the property and signs the deed. Involuntary alienation is a transfer of title without the owner's consent. This can happen through various legal processes such as foreclosure due to non-payment of a mortgage, eminent domain where the government takes private property for public use, adverse possession when someone openly uses your land for a statutory period, or escheat, which is when the state takes property when an owner dies without a will or heirs. Let's affirm this. I know how property is legally transferred. Practicing real estate isn't just about deals and contracts. It's about doing so ethically and legally, treating all parties fairly. The cornerstone of this is the Fair Housing Act, a federal law passed in 1968 that prohibits discrimination in the sale, rental, and financing of housing based on race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, and familial status, which means having children. This means you can't refuse to sell or rent to someone or offer them different terms based on their membership in one of these protected classes. The goal is to ensure equal access to housing for everyone. Violations of the Fair Housing Act can take several forms. Steering is the illegal practice of guiding prospective homebuyers towards or away from certain neighborhoods based on their protected class. For example, telling a client, "You'd be more comfortable in this neighborhood. It has more families like yours," is steering and is illegal. Blockbusting, also known as panic peddling, is the illegal practice of inducing homeowners to sell their properties by making representations about the entry or prospective entry of persons of a particular protected class into the neighborhood. For example, an agent might try to scare owners into selling cheaply by saying, "You should sell now before those people move in and property values drop." This is a predatory and illegal tactic. Another important legal practice relates to closing the transaction. Most states have good funds laws. These laws require that at the closing, the funds used to purchase the property must be secure and immediately available. This typically means the buyer must bring a cashier's check, a certified check, or wire transfer the funds. A personal check, which could bounce, is generally not considered good funds. This ensures that the seller and all other parties involved in the transaction are guaranteed to receive their money at the moment the title is transferred, preventing last-minute financial issues from derailing the closing. Upholding these laws is essential to a smooth and professional practice. Let's affirm this. I practice real estate ethically and legally. While real estate is definitely a people business, you absolutely need to be comfortable with the math. Let's start with prorations. Prorations are the process of dividing certain property expenses and income between the buyer and seller at closing. Common prorated items include property taxes, homeowners association dues, and rent from an income property. For example, if the seller has already paid the property taxes for the entire year, the buyer will need to reimburse the seller for the portion of the year that the buyer will own the property. It's about fairness, making sure each party only pays for the days they actually own the home. Next up is loan interest. It's crucial to understand how to calculate the interest a borrower will pay. Most mortgage interest is paid in arrears, meaning the payment you make on June 1st is for the interest that accrued during the month of May. The basic formula for calculating annual interest is loan balance times interest rate equals annual interest. To find the monthly interest, you simply divide the annual interest by 12. For the exam, you'll often need to calculate the interest portion of a specific monthly payment or the total interest paid over a period. This is a fundamental skill for explaining loan costs to clients. Finally, let's talk about the math you'll use most often: commission. Commission is the fee paid to the brokerage for their services, typically calculated as a percentage of the property's sale price. For example, if a home sells for $300,000 and the agreed-upon commission is 6%, the total commission is $18,000. This total commission is then typically split between the listing brokerage and the buyer's brokerage, and then further split between the brokerage and the individual agent. Another common calculation is for transfer tax, which is a tax levied by the state or county on the transfer of real property. You'll need to know your local rate and how to calculate it based on the sale price. Let's affirm this. I can handle the numbers behind real estate deals. We have covered a tremendous amount of ground together today, from the fundamentals of property ownership and the rules of land use, all the way through financing, contracts, and the essential calculations. My hope is that by breaking down these complex topics into smaller, more digestible pieces, you're feeling more confident and less overwhelmed. Remember, the key to mastering this material isn't about cramming. It's about building a true intuitive understanding. It's about seeing how all these different chapters connect to form the larger picture of a real estate transaction. This is the foundation upon which your successful career will be built. I want you to think of this video as a tool. Come back to it. Listen to a chapter a day. Use the affirmations at the end of each section to solidify your knowledge. The more you engage with this material, the more natural it will become. The questions on the exam won't seem like trick questions, but rather as logical applications of the principles you now deeply understand. You have the ability to not just pass this exam, but to excel at it. Believe in the work you've put in and the knowledge you are building. Every moment you spend studying is an investment in your future. Before we conclude, let's take a moment to set our intention for success. This is not just wishful thinking, it's about programming your mind for the outcome you desire. Your mindset is one of the most powerful tools you have. Walk into that exam room with your head held high, knowing that you are prepared, you are capable, and you are ready. You have done the work, and you will succeed. Repeat daily affirmations. I am confident and ready for the exam. I understand real estate concepts deeply. I recall key facts with ease. I will pass the national real estate exam with a perfect score.